So let's talk for a minute just about the goals of Pick.Click.Give. Overall, Pick.Click.Give goals are to increase the number of donors to the nonprofit organization. So this really benefits each of us to bring in new donors to our organization. It's also to increase the individual charitable giving within the state of Alaska. So hopefully increase the revenues for each of our organizations. And it's also to build a culture of individual philanthropy. So helping the state as a whole really increase that individual philanthropy. And as we look at the goals of Pick.Click.Give, each of our organizations have a lot of wonderful opportunities within this. We, through Pick.Click.Give, have the opportunity to build relationships with our Pick.Click.Give donors and help connect them to our mission and encourage these donors that we get through Pick.Click.Give to donate in that way, but also connect to our organizations and potentially give to us on a more annual basis ways as well. And a real benefit of Pick.Click.Give is that our donor prospecting is really done for you. We get a list of people that we may or may not know that are interested in the work that we do and might be making an initial gift to our organization. So this is a lot of information on this slide, and so we're just going to talk about a little bit of it today. Pick.Click.Give training series, there's several presentations on donor development that talk about these triangles more in depth, but and I encourage you to participate in those theory or in those sessions, but we're going to just talk about it in a very overview kind of process. So what we have here are two triangles. And as we can see, the triangle that's pointed up, that's really about what our organization does. It's specifically around our organization and breaking down how we're communicating with donors. And then the pyramid going down is really around donor commitment. This is really breaking down how our donors are connected to our organization and how their commitment to our organization increases as it goes towards the top of the page there. So let's talk about it for a second. First, starting with the pyramid going up, our organization. At the bottom there, you can see there are several different levels, but at the very bottom level, we have here entry level or annual giving. So this is where donors are coming in and connecting with our organization really off of impulse. This might be out of somebody making an ask and just an automatic, or an impulsive answer to say yes. This might be donors that give after a disaster has occurred and they feel connected and the need to connect to organizations to relieve in that disaster. But it's really around impulse. There's not a lot of intensive thought that goes around it. It's an impulsive connection. And then as we move up the triangle there, we can see consistent annual giving. So this is really around donors making a habit. And so we're helping donors connect to our organization on a regular basis in an annual way. And then we'll go up to the next level there, and this is around renewed or upgraded. And this is a rational choice. Donors are connecting, and we're talking with our donors to try and help them see the benefit of their donation and contribution and how an increased gift can potentially assist even more. These three levels right here are really where we start to see our Pick.Click.Give donors. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's generally the areas that we see Pick.Click.Give showing up. And then we can just briefly talk about the pyramid going down, and this is the donor commitment. And we can see as donors increase the type of giving they give, from entry to consistent annual giving, renewed to major gift, and so on and so forth, their commitment and connection to the organization increases. They're more involved, they're more engaged, there's a higher level of trust and accountability within the relationship. There's more transparency, and as organizations, we need to show additional appreciation as they continue and move up the triangle there of giving. So that's just a basic overview of the donor commitments and how our organization involves donors within our work. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the donor relationship, expectations of time. So as we all know, relationships take time, and donors are no different. It's important to put the time and energy into the relationship to help them continue up that triangle and get them into a consistent and increased donor potentially. So expectations of time, right here you can see we're at the first 30% is around research. And that's really what our presentation is about today, is really looking at your donors and saying, who are they, trying to start to understand who they are, why they're giving to our organization. And this is a place where we're really talking about, we're preparing our communication with them, how we're going to talk to our donors, and we're making a plan. A plan is really important as we move forward, because we know that we are all very busy trying to provide really strong mission and work within our daily activities. And so if we don't make a plan to connect with our donors, it's easy to get lost in our day-to-day activities. So really, the first 30% is around research, like I said, we're talking about today. And the next 30% is around relationship building. This is where we're connecting our donors to our organizations and really helping them to understand what is done, as well as how they are integrated and how they benefit and help us to fulfill our mission, and how we're doing that together. This is also where we're talking with our donors and really starting to build that relationship. And the majority of our time should be spent listening. It's easy to spend the time talking about the important work that's happening within our organizations, but this is really a space where we need to pay attention to listening to why they're engaged in our organization and how they feel connected to it. The next 10% is around requests. So this is when we're actually asking for money or asking for their contribution to our organization. This is where Pick.Click.Give is living, so this might be the reminder to Pick.Click.Give. And this is only at 10% of the relationship. And then we'll move on to the next 30% around recognition and reporting. So this is where we are saying thank you. It's very important, as we all know, to say thank you for the contributions and gifts that we receive. And it's important to do it early and often. And so the more ways that we can think of connecting to our donors and saying thank you, the better. So that's really the expectation of time cycle. And maybe I'll just run through an example right quick about how at Alaska Youth Advocates, how we used Pick.Click.Give to, and our donors there to work them around this cycle. So first in the research, we really used Pick.Click.Give to help us to know who was actually interested in wanting to contribute even $25 to our organization. And we didn't have a robust development department. We're a pretty small operation, and so Pick.Click.Give was an opportunity for us to be able to see who would contribute to us. And so we spent a bit of time looking at our data or looking at our names and who our people were and trying to understand and learn who they were. And then the next step of the relationship, we started to tell them stories. We told them about the work that was going on at AYA. We asked them why they chose us in this mission and listened to their stories about their meaningful connections to our work. And we also invited them to open houses or agency celebrations, things that didn't cost money but brought us all together so that we could learn who each other were. And then obviously we did the Pick.Click.Give request the following year, as well as an annual appeal. And then under recognition, we really spent a lot of time thinking about how do we say thank you to our donors. We did a general overall Pick.Click.Give thank you. We did individual thank yous. And we did, about 6 months later, another connection to our mission around we told a client story and helped them to understand what their donation and contribution was continuing to provide for our community. And so you can see here how we spent some time thinking about the different stages of the cycle and building the relationship, and finished off in that thinking in a strong way, because that really helps the momentum to keep us moving around the cycle so that we can jump back into research. So that's the expectation cycle. So let's talk a little bit about what we know about Pick.Click.Give donors. Oops, sorry about that. About our Pick.Click.Give donors. 50% of our donors currently remain anonymous. So as you receive your list, your Excel spreadsheet essentially of your donors, you'll see people by individual name and their contact information, and then you'll have one lump sum and state the number of donors that you have and the total amount of gift. And so within that, that is only throughout the state of Alaska for Pick.Click.Give, that's only about 50% of our donors that are releasing their information and letting us know who they are. There's a couple changes coming up this year around the disclosure process. One is that previously donors had to previously donors had to choose to disclose their information, and that it defaulted to anonymous. So as Pick.Click.Give donors made their donation, there was a box that they had to check to tell us their information. Otherwise, as they continued to move through the process, it defaulted to anonymous. This year, that's going to change. This year, donors will be required to choose to disclose or remain anonymous. So we're hopeful that that will increase the number of people that are disclosing their information, in the hopes that people were just moving through their application and not realizing that they were remaining anonymous. So we'll see how that changes our information this coming year. And then we have, if you were part of Pick.Click.Give last year, you may have seen the Double Your Dividend sweepstakes. So this was an opportunity for 10 Alaskans who share part of their permanent fund dividend through Pick.Click.Give to be entered into a sweepstakes to earn an extra dividend. And that came towards the end of our cycle last year with Pick.Click.Give. It was just advertised in the month of March. And this year we'll have the opportunity to continue to advertise that and encourage donors to disclose their information. So let's talk a little bit about data, or what the overall Pick.Click.Give data tells us. So we see that over the years, Pick.Click.Give has continued to grow and increase, and so we're meeting some of those goals, which is pretty exciting. You can see under revenue that it's also increasing, obviously, and we're hoping with the work of the whole sector that we continue to grow this in 2014. Pick.Click.Give in 2013, you can see here the male to female ratio. So we can see that the female Alaska population is really driving a lot of the work here at Pick.Click.Give. And so that's just a good thing to know about as you think about your donor population and who you're reaching out to. Here in 2013, we can look at some of the age breakdown. Here we see we start at 14% is our 0 to 21-year-olds, and then goes around the pie. So 19% of our donors are between the ages of 22 to 34. 16% are between the ages of 35 to 44, and so on and so forth. And so, you know, this is pretty consistent with national information, but a couple of things that really pop out that are interesting here is that 14% between the ages of 0 to 21. So what we are assuming, and what some of our organizations have chosen to focus some of their advertising or marketing around, is parents or guardians that are working with their children in their permanent fund application and helping them to decide organizations that they care about and helping their children to Pick.Click.Give and using this as an opportunity to talk about philanthropy. Another thing that's interesting here is around that 19% of the population, that 19% of the donors in Pick.Click.Give are between the ages of 22 to 34. So we see a large population, this 14% to 19% under the age of 34, that are using the ease of Pick.Click.Give to contribute to organizations. And so what we think that this really is showing us and talking about is that online connection and ease of a newer generation and how they like to, or how they're choosing and liking to contribute to our organizations. Where we see the 11% there, the 65 and older, they might not, Pick.Click.Give might not be the method or the way they're connecting to our organizations. And so it's important for us to really think about the generational differences as well in Pick.Click.Give. And then in 2013, we also had some information about repeat donors. So here you can see that 45% of our donors last year was the first time that they contributed through this Pick.Click.Give option. There you got 24% giving a second time, third time is 18%, fourth time is 9%, and then the fifth time is 4%. So we can see here that, that we have a lot of new donors. And as you start to look at your data and who your donors are, you can think about this breakdown of how often people are returning to Pick.Click.Give to contribute to our organizations. I've got a question here. I'll take a pause for an answer. So we've got a question here. It says, what about the people who apply for permanent funds by mail and is there no Pick.Click.Give option? Yes, that's true. So those that apply through the mail aren't able to go through aren't able to contribute through Pick.Click.Give. It's only an online option. And so also an area, that we see in that earlier slide. Let's see here that 11%, 65 or older, that might be a contributing factor to that population not contributing through Pick.Click.Give because they could be filing paper applications. But that's true for all the population. So, if they're choosing to apply through the paper format, then it's not an option. Great question. So repeat donors. So thinking about this data is Pick.Click.Give as a whole and how that really matches up to your organization will be a great tool as we move forward and look at some of the data. So how do we analyze your data and what are some things that we can start to look at? First, let's talk a little bit about donor databases. So to do true donor analysis, it takes some support of a donor database. We really encourage organizations at this point to be looking into donor database. If you're working off of an Excel spreadsheet or don't even have an Excel spreadsheet, we really encourage you to look at the options that are out there. And the Foraker Group would love to talk with you about what that might look like. There are a lot of options out there and different choices for different size of agency and what your needs might be. And so if you don't have that, we'd love to talk to you about it. If you are working off an Excel spreadsheet, then it's somewhere to start. And so we encourage you to look at that information as we go forward. So comparative analysis. So in looking at your donors and those that are contributing through Pick.Click.Give, Pick.Click.Give has been an option since 2009, and so if you were an organization that was participating since the beginning, 6 years of possible data, but you don't have to have had 6 years of data. You could have only had 2. So if you have been participating, if your organization has been participating for more than 1 year, you have information to start to show you who your donors are and start to see some trends. Oh, sorry. So let's talk about what some of those trends are that you could start to look at and think about. So like I just talked about, if you have 2 or more years, you can start to see who likes to contribute through Pick.Click.Give and who is continuing to choose your organization. That will start to show a consistency and a connection to the work that you're doing. You can look and see the contribution. So is that contribution increasing or is it decreasing? Again, to help you to understand your donor's connection to the work that you're doing. And then out of your Pick.Click.Give donors, how many of them are contributing outside of Pick.Click.Give? So it's a wonderful goal to help move your Pick.Click.Give donors into other methods within your organization, and not to just allow them to stay in the Pick.Click.Give realm, but to continue building that relationship and connection to the work that you do. You can start to think about who are your donors. Looking at your information, who do you know? Who does your team know? And who don't you know? And this is going to be different for different sizes of organizations. At Alaska Youth Advocates, we were starting at a pretty beginning level, and so we were able to look at all of the donors that were contributing to our to Alaska Youth Advocates through Pick.Click.Give. Some of our organizations are going to be quite larger, and that's not going to be feasible. And so you'll want to start to look at your list and say who, maybe your top ring that you focus your time and energy around that top to say, to start to learn who these people are. Are there any examples of successful donor analysis out there that you've found helpful? So as you've started to look at your list over the years, are there other things that your organization has asked or thought about that you felt helpful to connect and understand who your donors are? So if you have any of those, if you want to type them in the box right there. I think this is also a time that we can maybe stop and just think a little bit about what can we implement within our organizations, and out of the data that we have, what can we take from this and bring back to our organization to start to understand and learn who our donors are. Great. So we'll just keep moving on. Oh, wait a second. Let's see. So we have one here that says, we heard from a board member who, let's see, sorry, go to meeting. We heard from a board member now contributes through Pick.Click.Give versus our annual appeal. She says she gives at a higher level because of the psychological from the free money she's getting. Perfect. So that's a great example of looking at donors and seeing your regular donors or your board members using Pick.Click.Give as an and gift. And that's a great example of how to use Pick.Click.Give successfully. We don't want donors to move from being annual givers to shifting their money to Pick.Click.Give and giving it the same level overall, but is an opportunity to increase their gift. And so using that psychological aspect of the PFD, that's free money and contributing in addition. And others say that they use it just for new contributions, perfect, and that Pick.Click.Give donors participate in other campaigns or special events. Absolutely, so helping the donors from Pick.Click.Give, really looking at, are we engaging them in our work in other ways into some of the events and activities that we're doing. And we can tie them to other interactions that we're doing, absolutely. So just what's happening within our organization in a year that we could potentially check in and connect with our donors, our Pick.Click.Give donors, to help them understand or help them connect in another way to the work that we're doing, and helping them to see what their contribution contributes to and helps our community in a strong way. Perfect. So those are some things that we can do, you know, in looking at our data. Next, we're going to talk, I briefly mentioned and talked about making a plan. So again, we're busy people. We have a lot going on. It's really important to make a plan around the work that the information that we're gleaning from our Pick.Click.Give list. And so first, we really need to build this plan based on the relationship cycle. And so it is better to have 5 donors that you really focus on and you bring completely around that donor, that relationship cycle, than to have 300 donors that you just receive their money from Pick.Click.Give. It's really important to think about that and honoring the donation that you're receiving through Pick.Click.Give.